The Summit County Court of Common Pleas is again in session. Honorable Christine Croce presiding.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, Mr. Riley, you may proceed with your cross-examination.
Your Honor, good afternoon, Mr. Barkhurst. You know me, you know I'm Scott Riley. We've met before. We've talked on occasion, correct?
Is my mic on? Okay.
All right.
It's directional, so you have to speak right into it.
Okay.
So I think we'll all agree the lawyers at the table aren't as technologically savvy as you are, so I'm going to ask you some questions about your testimony, your evaluations, and some of the scientific forensic things that you've done. And if I get a technical term wrong or am mistaken in my belief, let me know right away, okay?
Okay.
Because I think everybody agrees in terms of forensics, you're smarter at computers than we are. Fair enough?
Okay.
Okay. But first I want to ask you a question. When did you go out to the scene? And when I say the scene, I mean the area of 719 Fultz.
It was in 2017, a few days after the fire in 2017.
All right, so you did not go out there at all for the 2016 incident, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. When you were out there in 2017, how long were you there?
Couple hours, a few hours.
And were you there with other law enforcement, other members of the fire marshal's office,
Yes.
other members of the Akron Police Department,
With the fire department.
the Akron Fire Department?
Correct.
All right. How long do you think you spent out at the scene on that day?
Maybe around 2 or 3 hours.
Other than that 2 or 3 hours that you spent in 2017, have you been to that neighborhood since?
Yes.
And when was that?
Maybe around 2 years ago.
And what part of the scene did you go to 2 years ago?
714 Fultz and also Fultz Street.
All right, so I believe we have marked as this exhibit here is State's Exhibit number 13. You recognize that map, correct? I should say, do you recognize that map?
Is it a zoomed in version of the Google Earth?
Well, I'm just asking you to recognize the neighborhood. I don't know where it was taken. I didn't make it. This is Mr. D'Angelo's exhibit, but
Okay, yes.
let me ask you this. Make it easy. You see here that this is Fultz Street, correct?
Correct.
And this is Hillcrest, correct?
Correct.
And Height Street runs up and down here. I believe that's in a north-south fashion, correct?
Correct.
And then Russell Avenue runs along here, correct?
Correct.
And the part that we don't see is where Russell Avenue meets East Avenue, correct?
Correct.
And you know that Russell Avenue does, in fact, continue off the page here and intersects with East Avenue, correct?
I'd have to look at a wider shot, but it's cut off there.
Right. From your recollection of being at the scene, do you have any recollection that East Avenue does, in fact, intersect with Russell Avenue?
Okay. So you can tell them it exists.
Right.
So for the record, the state of Ohio is stipulating that Russell Avenue and East Avenue connect at a point in the lower left-hand portion of State's Exhibit 13, which is not depicted on the map. Did I get that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We can agree on that, right?
Okay, I understand, yes.
All right, so when you were out at the scene, where did you direct your activities? Just to 714 Fultz?
Yes, and also on the side of 1370, I was on the street there, and I saw where 719 Fultz Street was.
All right. So other than walking the neighborhood and making observations, did you do anything else? In other words, did you take any pictures? Did you take any video? Did you collect any samples? Anything like that?
I took photos.
We talk about, you testified regarding a truck that you made observations of going up and down Fultz Avenue. You recall that testimony, correct?
Yes.
And I believe you said at one point in time, the vehicle was traveling up Fultz towards East Avenue, correct?
Correct.
And then at other times, the vehicle was heading down Fultz Avenue towards Height, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree with me, wouldn't you, that a vehicle that was on Height and Fultz, right at the bend there, could travel up to East Avenue without going down Fultz Street, correct?
Correct.
It could drive down Height to Russell, up Russell to East Avenue, and then East Avenue could turn right, could turn left, correct?
Correct.
And the video that you made mention of wouldn't have covered any of that, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So it's fair to say that a vehicle that was at the intersection of Fultz and Height could proceed just as easily up Russell Avenue to East Avenue as it could up Fultz to East Avenue, correct?
Calls for speculation, sustained.
If a vehicle were to travel from Fultz to Height to Russell, the videos that you made reference to would not have captured that activity, correct?
Correct.
When did you go to the Circle K that was mentioned?
I did not go to the Circle K.
All right, so you've never been to the Circle K?
I've never been to the Circle K.
Would you agree with me that through the course of your investigation in this matter, you have never examined a DVR hard drive or DVR recording device that was located at 730 Fultz Street?
Can you give me the address again, please?
730 Fultz.
No.
And when it comes to 714 Fultz, at least in 2016, you never examined a hard drive to that machine either, correct?
Correct.
I believe you stated that you utilized 3 CDs or 3 discs of information, correct?
Correct.
And are you aware that the CDs were copied from a flash drive, which was copied from a hard drive?
No.
All right. So if Detective Hall had testified previously that she downloaded from the hard drive at 714 Fultz data and then transferred that data from a flash drive to a CD, you did not know that, correct?
Correct.
You did examine the hard drive, though, of the DVR unit from 719 Fultz, correct?
Correct.
And in that examination, would you agree with me that the first images that you found on that DVR went back to October of 2015?
It was around that. It's several months prior.
Again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. you and I had an occasion a couple hours ago to talk about a Dvr Examiner Report. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And that is the report that your computer program generates when you're downloading the information from the DVR itself, correct?
correct.
And there was some confusion, and you helped me clear it up. There were two reports that were done, at least on the DVR at 719 faults, correct?
Correct.
And one of the reports, although both reports were generated at the same time and had different report numbers, one of the reports had an error on it, correct?
Correct.
And I think you and I figured out that it just didn't download the thumbnails of the video, correct?
That's why I believe that error is, yes.
Okay. And I'm just going to show you for your recollection to refresh it if you could. Copy the DVR export report that we talked about, correct?
Correct.
And I believe at the bottom right side it talks about earliest clip, correct?
Correct.
And the earliest clip that was discovered on that DVR was from October 3rd of 2015, correct?
Correct.
And the latest clip was April 18th of 2016, correct?
Correct.
When you began your examination of the CDs that were the copies of the copy of the hard drive from 714 faults, if I'm reading your report correctly, you established a hash value for those videos, correct?
Correct.
When you got those CDs and the files that contain the videos, it did not come with a hash value, correct?
Correct.
And for the jury, and correct me if I'm wrong, a hash value is sort of the DNA of a video file, correct?
Yes, I'd like to refer to it as a fingerprint for a digital file.
And it's important to have a hash value because you know that the copy is an exact copy of the original, correct?
Correct.
And without the hash value, there's no way to determine if in fact the copy is an exact copy, correct?
If you hash the thumb drive, the files on the thumb drive, and then hash the files on the disk, you could find out.
But without that, you couldn't, correct?
Correct.
Will you agree with me that when you are making a copy, sometimes data is left off that copy, correct?
It can happen, yes.
And I think you and I first met a couple years ago in the prosecutor's office with an external hard drive, and I couldn't get some files to work. Do you recall that? We met in Mr. D'Angelo's office?
Yes.
And my notes reflect that the conversation we had is one of the files on the hard drive was corrupted. Do you remember that?
There was issues playing it back.
And so we got a second hard drive. Is that fair?
Fair, yes.
Okay. A mirror image of a hard drive, I believe you call it a forensic copy, correct?
Correct.
And that is, well, it's what it is. It's you make a complete copy of the actual hard drive, correct?
Correct.
And then you, as a forensic analyst, work off of that forensic image, not the original, correct?
Correct.
Because every time you go to operate the original, something on the hard drive can change, correct?
If it's in the video recorder, yes.
Because digital recordings, computer language, it's nothing but a bunch of ones and zeros, correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. D'Angelo, do you have Exhibit 35? Mr. Barkhurst, I'm going to show you Exhibit 35 for a minute. You previously identified that. Do you recall that?
Yes.
That appears to be a sealed envelope. and your initials don't appear to be on it anywhere. How do we know that that's exactly what you looked at?
We can open it up and see if my initials are on the disc.
Okay. And you would put them on, actually on the desk?
Yes, typically, yeah.
Okay. That's all I have, Judge.
Any redirect, Mr. D'Angelo?
Yes, I'll have 1 minute, Judge. Mr. Barkhurst, I just have a couple of questions. These boards that are in front of you, did you have a chance to look at these boards? I think they're big poster boards. They're marked for identification purposes, States Exhibit 80 through 87.
Yes,
Okay. And are these identical copies to the timeline that you had in this packet here?
yes,
Mr. Riley asked you about meeting in my office, and you later provided a hard drive copy or a terabyte hard drive copy of all the video in this case. Is that true?
yes,
Okay. And you provided Mr. Riley with one of those?
yes,
Now, Mr. Riley had asked you about how you don't use the original. Traditionally, you'll analyze the copies or download from the original. Is that fair?
what's submitted to us.
Submitted to you, okay. And although you may copy something or download something from, I don't know, a burnt out DVR system, can you still analyze those particular files,
Yes,
even though they're copied from the original?
yes.
The changes that you may see here or there, from the copy, how significant are they?
You referring to the copy from the USB drive to the CDs?
Sure.
I've never seen the video off the USB drive.
Okay. But when you just generally copy something from one medium to the next, can you see changes?
Typically, just from copying, unless there's an issue with the copying or computer, the copies typically come out, from my experience, correct.
Okay. I have 1 minute, Judge. Judge, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Okay, all right, Mr. Barkhurst, that concludes your testimony for today. My understanding is you are coming back in a couple, probably next week, I believe. So I will advise you that you're not to talk with anyone about the status of your testimony here today. If you meet with the prosecutors in anticipation of your testimony going forward, that's fine, but no discussion about what you've testified so far to. Understand?
I understand.
Thank you, you're excused. And then you could call your next witness, please.
Judge, can we go to the sidebar real quick?
Sure.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Joe. I think all of us.
No.
Okay, all right, David, no video of this detective. Who can, oh, I don't know, I didn't ask him. Always, or he's usually listening, so if he's listening, find out if he got your audio visual part of it. Ken? He's got to put his jacket on. He's got to put his jacket on. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you, Judge.
Sure. Do you need a marker too?
Yes, please.
I have those two.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. You might as well bring it in here while we're waiting. Or never mind.
Oh, thank you. That's all I left up there.
Yep, you're right there. Put your stuff down and then raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Go ahead and have a seat. Once you're seated and comfortable, please remove your mask, keep your voice up, speak into the microphone, and you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ma'am, can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Tanisha Stewart, Tanisha Ann Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T.
And where are you currently employed, Ms. Stewart?
If I still have a job with them, with the Cleveland Clinic Rehabilitation Hospital,
What do you do for them?
registered nurse.
Okay. And at some point, were you employed by the Akron Police Department?
Yes.
And in what capacity?
Finally, as a detective.
And for how long were you a police officer?
I was a police officer. I retired at 25 years.
25 years. Okay. And then you became a nurse.
Yes.
How long have you been a nurse?
It's only been about a year.
Okay. When did you officially retire from the Akron Police Department?
November 30th, 2019.
Were all your years as a police officer with the Akron Police Department?
Yes.
Okay. Now, before you joined the Akron Police Department, did you serve in the armed forces?
In the U.S. Army, yes.
And how long?
4 years.
Detective Stewart, when you were employed with the Akron Police Department, can you tell the jury what divisions you were assigned to as a police officer?
Most of my time was in the patrol division. And during that time in the patrol division, I also had dual duties with the honor guard for a stint, a hostage negotiator, crisis intervention, a mentoring program, and then I went I don't know, 7, 8 years up to the Detective Bureau. Part of that time was in major crimes or crimes against persons, and the other part, while I was finishing nursing school, was in property crimes.
What were your duties in the Crimes Against Persons unit?
Crimes against persons. You investigate any crime against a person. Rape, robbery, felonious assault, murder.
What type of training did you undergo as a police officer that enabled you to work in that division of the Akron Police Department?
Well, the training experience that you have in patrol, because patrol gets to every call first. Also, I got a certification through OPATA as a certified criminal investigator, and then plenty of on-the-job training with my peers and supervisors.
Detective Stewart, I'd like to draw your attention to April 18th of 2016. Do you recall that date?
Yes.
Were you working in your capacity as a detective in the Crimes Against Persons unit of the Akron Police Department on that date?
Yes.
And what shift were you working?
Midnights.
And what's midnight? What's the midnight shift?
Roughly, was it 10:30 to 6:30 or 7 to 11, somewhere in there?
Okay. Did you have a partner or did you work with anyone when you worked
The whole
there?
team worked cohesively as a unit.
How many people were part of the team?
There were about, I would say, six detectives, supervisor, a couple of sergeants, our lieutenant.
All worked together to
Yes.
assist when something happened? Okay. Now, Detective Stewart, did you have a chance to respond to Fultz Avenue in the city of Akron on April 18th of 2016?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what address you responded to?
There was a fire call that was dispatched out at 719 Falls,
All right. And that's located in what city, county, and state?
Akron, Ohio, Summit County.
All right. You said there was a fire reported there. Tell the jury why you had to respond.
It was later discovered or learned that there were potential victims that had died in that fire.
What time did you arrive there at 719 Fultz or that neighborhood, if you recall?
I would have to look at my report for that, but it would have been in that 4 o'clock in the morning hour. But I would need to refer to our report for the exact time.
Okay. When you arrived, can you tell the jury what the first thing you did, or what was the first thing you observed?
And this is like 6 years ago. There were already a plethora of personnel out there, fire and police, potential witnesses that were out there. And so I was directed to different people who may have been good potential witnesses, ear or eye witnesses to speak to first.
Who was giving you that information as to where to go and who to speak with?
Some from patrol, supervisors, but also my own direct supervisor, Sergeant Lickey.
Okay. And so Sergeant Lickey, was he there with you?
Yes, he was also on the scene.
All right. And next to you, you have that computer screen. Do you see that, ma'am?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as previously identified and marked as State's Exhibit number 32. Do you see that photograph of that individual there, sir or ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know who that individual is?
I believe that is Nicholas Costa.
All right. And did you speak with him on that date?
I did.
Okay. And do you know where it was that he lived?
He lived directly next door. If you're looking at 719, he was directly to the left of that, which will be west, I believe.
Okay.
You want it? May I take a?
Sure.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you two photographs marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 33 and 34. Can you please take a minute to look through those two photographs? You're done?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to put them on the document camera. State's Exhibit number 33, Detective Stewart. Do you see an individual there in that photograph marked State's Exhibit 33?
Yes.
In then State's Exhibit 34, do you see that another? Or do you see an individual in that photograph?
Yes.
Okay. And were you able to identify during the course of your investigation who that was?
That's who I know to be the neighbor, Mr. Costas.
Okay. At some point, did you speak with a man by the name of Thomas Hughley?
Yes.
All right. And I'm showing on the document camera what photograph that's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 24. Do you recognize that individual?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury who that is?
That was one of the basement tenants, Mr. Hughley.
Okay. And where did you speak with him at?
I spoke with him initially in the fire rig, the ambulance rig.
Okay. And what was he doing in the ambulance?
He had been rendered aid, first of all, because he had taken a little bit of smoke. And so once they rendered him, safe enough to speak to and stable, then I interviewed him.
Okay. And without telling us what he said, did he talk to you about what he saw, what he remembered there that night?
Yes.
All right. And did he, without telling us what he said, did he talk to you about the relationships of the parties of different people in the neighborhood and people at 719 Fultz?
Yes.
Did you talk to him about his relationship with the defendant, Stanley Ford?
Yes.
Now, after you spoke with, do you know where Mr. Hughley is now?
It's my understanding he's deceased.
At some point, did you go to 714 Fultz?
Yes.
And do you know who lived at 714 Fultz?
He was referred to as two things. Informally as Chucky Pool by a couple of people, but I know him as Chester Williams.
Okay. I'm showing on the document camera an exhibit that has previously been marked and identified as States Exhibit 25. Do you recognize that individual, ma'am?
Yes, that's Mr. Chester.
Okay, that's Mr. Chester Williams.
Yes.
And where did you speak with him?
In his house.
And why were you speaking with Mr. Williams in his house?
I was alerted to the fact that he had surveillance camera
Okay, he had a surveillance camera on his house.
on his house.
Okay. And when you spoke with him, can you describe his demeanor for the jury?
Concerned and cautious.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
He was concerned about whether we would be seen talking to other neighbors because he didn't want any potential retaliation, for talking to the police.
Okay. Did you, without telling us what he said, did you speak with him about the dynamics and the relationship between the neighbors in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Did you speak with him specifically about the folks at 719 Fultz and their relationship with the defendant, Stanley Ford?
Yes.
Now, Detective Stewart, that video at 714 Fultz, did you have a chance to view it right then and there, or tell us about that?
No, I did not get a chance to view any video right then or there from anywhere. I got that later.
Okay. You viewed that video later on?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a chance to go look for other video in other locations in and around the neighborhood?
Yes.
Tell the jury where you went.
Well, the immediate houses that were around on Fultz and also Hillcrest. Also, there were businesses on East Avenue. So I believe we checked the daycare. They didn't have any video that depicted out front. A couple of churches, Fred's Diner. There was a lawnmower shop over there on East Avenue somewhere. There was a charities organization, and then Circle K. Off the top of my head, that's what I remember.
By Fred's Diner, are you referring to Bob's Hamburg?
Might be. Yes, I am.
Fred's Diner's on the other side of
Now
that.
you're right. They are over on home. You are right. They make a mean omelet.
Okay.
They do.
All right, Detective Stewart, I'd like to talk to you now about some witnesses that you had a chance to interview. How many witnesses approximately would you say you interviewed during the course of your investigation into this fire?
Approximately, a dozen.
Okay. And did you speak to a man by the name of Ronald Garrett?
Yes.
And where did you learn that he lived?
He too was a tenant in the basement with Mr. Hughley
Okay.
at 719 Falls.
All right. Do you know if he had items in the basement there?
Yes.
And how was he, what was his demeanor when you spoke with him?
I couldn't quite get a grasp on him.
Why do you say that?
In my professional opinion, it seemed that there were things that were being omitted or left out.
Okay.
Or maybe a bit of evasiveness.
And what was his emotional state when you spoke with him?
He was upset.
And what do you mean by upset?
I believe at one point in the interview, when he was recalling some of Lindell and his, childhood and past memories, he was, moved to tears. But yeah, he had a roller coaster of emotions.
Did you notice any noticeable disabilities on him?
Not noticeable, but he told me he was legally blind.
Okay. Did you speak to a man by Gregory Lewis?
Yes.
Who's Gregory Lewis?
The deceased Lindell Lewis's brother.
All right. Is Mr. Lewis still alive? Do you know that?
I believe he's also deceased.
Did you speak with a witness by the name of Tiffany Gary?
Yes.
And what was her relationship to your investigation in this case?
She was a neighbor, and she afforded a little background information on neighborhood dynamics.
Okay. She was there at the scene that night too, is that fair?
That morning?
Yes.
Yes, I believe I interviewed her as well in that ambulance rig.
Did you speak with an individual by the name of Jonald McLemore?
Yes.
And who is Jonald McLemore?
He was referred to as John McLemore or Little Mac. He was a previous tenant and longtime friend of the deceased.
Okay. And during your investigation of him, did you have some suspicions about Mr. McLemore?
Yes.
Tell the jury why.
It was, I believe it was the brother and also another witness that I spoke to that alerted me to him possibly setting a van of Lindell's on fire in the past and was upset about some money.
Okay. And did you speak with him about those things?
Yes.
So you learned that he had some issues with Mr. Lewis, Lindell Lewis.
Yes.
Were you able to learn during the course of your investigation what the status of their relationship was at the time of the fire or right around that time period?
At the time of the fire, it was understood that they were amicable.
Judge, can we approach?
Sure. Okay, Mr. D'Angelo, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Detective Stewart, did you speak with a lady by the name of Francine Lewis?
Yes.
And what was her relationship to Lindell Lewis?
His ex-wife.
Okay. Did you speak with a individual by the name of William Pryor?
Yes.
And what was his relationship with Francine Lewis?
That was her longtime boyfriend.
Okay. Did you know if Francine Lewis was still married to Lindell Lewis?
They were divorced.
Okay. Now, at this point in your investigation, after you had spoken to all these witnesses at the scene and then all these, sort of background witnesses, who did you want to speak with next?
Well, I wanted to speak to everyone.
Yeah.
But including on that day, if we're still talking about that day, before I left that scene, I spoke to Mr. Ford.
Okay. And do you see Mr. Ford in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please point to him and describe what he's wearing for the record, please?
He is over to my right with, I believe it's a tan long sleeve shirt, pants, black shoes, and a face mask.
And that was based on information that you had obtained from all these witnesses that led you to want to speak with him?
Yeah, while I was out there initially, his name came up a few times.
Okay. Now, you said, how many times did you spoke to him that night or roughly that morning?
I spoke to him that morning.
On
Yes.
April 18th of 2016?
Yes.
And then did you speak to him again another time?
Yes.
And when was that?
Spoke to him a couple of times. I believe it was the same evening I came back and circled back around. But then I did have a telephone conversation with him that's also articulated in my report. And I believe that was a couple of months later.
Okay. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to play for you just the beginning portions of what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 103.
Ladies and gentlemen, before you start to listen to these exhibits, I want to explain to you, I have made some rulings regarding some things that were contained in those exhibits, excuse me, maybe one or two of them. If there's a pause or it appears that maybe something was cut out, it's because I've ruled that part of it inadmissible. So I don't want you to think that anybody has tampered with these statements. It was just based on a previous ruling that I made concerning those tapes and what I deemed admissible. Understand? Yes, by raise of hand? Thank you. Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Oh, hold on. Detective Stewart, after listening to those few seconds of State's Exhibit 103, do you hear any voices you recognize?
My own.
Okay. And where was it that you, is this a recording of the interview that you conducted with the defendant
Yes.
on April 18th of 2016?
Yes.
And where did you conduct this interview?
At his side door of his residence.
And what residence was that?
1370 Hillcrest at Fultz.
There appears to be a lot of background noise. Tell the jury what that's from.
Emergency vehicles.
Okay. Fire trucks, things like that.
Yes.
Okay. And initially, do you continue to speak with him at the side door?
Yes.
Tell the jury why.
That's where he wanted to speak. He didn't want to go in or come out. So he
Okay.
wanted to speak there, and we did.
All right.
Okay. Sorry, Stanley Ford. And you said you were telling me something about some more doors that, you know. Oh, there was something that just tell a lot of people. I didn't know what they had out of stuff. I think I put one in the morning. But I see police officers driving the morning, turning the girl off. I don't know her name. How long was that? Probably a couple weeks ago. And you know, before, you know, I don't know what she was saying over here, but I never affiliated with her, you know. I'm trying not to bother anybody. There's a lot of people up here, and they got like they don't want to be bothered. So, you know, I just feel I fall right in the group, not to be bothered with. How long did you do? I've been up here about 30 years. Okay. Yeah. Did you ever have any problems with what you did with it? Any arguments or anything? Well, sometimes they would want to cut my grass, right? You know, because they want to drink, they want to eat, want to do time, I guess. But, I just get a little something that's not even home, girl. Let me understand shit. Yeah, you know. So, sometimes it don't go too well, you know. It's like I got a neighbor that I'm in Lower Smart. He said, you know, these guys come up here, they want to cut your grass, and you tell them not to get mad. I said, no, stuff like that is crazy, man. So I just went out to body. I don't want no trouble. You know, I think that people just recently guys pulled and parked in my driveway. I heard another boom. They went out to the party. I got called the police, but by the time the police got here, it was like 3 in the morning. It's crazy, man. What kind of stuff did you realize something was wrong? Oh, I just saw it. I didn't know what was going on. You know, I did not feel it. Was you so last night working with you? Well, that's what I was telling like, I was working out and I was kind of sleeping a little bit. And so my wife was mad, you know, like, well, I'm going to work out. So we decided to do that. Right. even sure that not even bother them. He said because they're bad people, you know, and God take care of them, you know, if they're religious, you know, the house is going. I go over there sometimes just to talk to George sometimes, you know. But, you know, I refrain back, so I ain't trying to get in trouble, you know, I try to do like all of that. I have to make sure, you know. I got one that's 9 and every 10, and I got one that's 3 and every 4. Oh, yeah, you got that. Yeah. So, you know, I just try to get in and nothing. And I got girls.
When can talk to your wife? She's the first one to heard anything about child.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know when's the time I saw her. I got your card.
It wasn't that hard to call her.
She at work. You call on I gotta get her work. I'm gonna work on it.
Do you have a cell?
Huh?
She has a cell phone?
Yeah, it's 330 310 2463. Yeah.
Where does she work at?
She worked at Apex Academy. Yeah. I told her she was coming over there something, you know.
And so you said she's saying, hey, something going on over there.
Something like that,
Did
yeah.
you get up?
No, I didn't get up because we was at the park. We was at the park up there at, what's that park up there by Walden?
Yeah, I know.
We was at that park. Huh? Is that the name of it? By Walden McDonald in there? So we was up there with the girls all day, running up around, getting them tired.
So when she said that, were you in the house when she told you that?
We was upstairs.
Okay. I mean, were you in the bathroom, bedroom, hall? And then, so you said you didn't get up when you told her that. Did she want to look out?
I really don't know because we like so we was tired, you know, we get to bed early. And we had to get up early.
Right. I remember you, but like everybody else came on out, or you looked out the window.
got in 08. Now, I was devastated, you know what I mean?
From here?
No, next door.
Next door, okay.
Yeah, but they, well, they paid for the one when I let it go. Got it good. You know, because my wife always said, you know, the hell is good. She said, you know, it's easy because once you get out, you got up. You know, and I listened to her. You know what I mean? When I was, I don't know if I've been married. I don't know if I've lived at that like that. You know what I'm saying? But when I got married, I got 2 kids. You know, you gotta sacrifice yourself to take care of your kids. That's what I'm doing now. I ain't trying to bother nobody. Yeah, the first time I've been married, I'm like, yeah, it's good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no arguments, no domestic violence, no police calls. It's beautiful, you know what I mean? If I'd have known if I could have had a good one when I was younger, you know what I'm saying? But, well, yeah. You know, don't give that to you. You know what I'm saying?
You got anything else to do going on?
No,
anything out here, like any other neighborhood dynamics?
no, but I'm gonna tell you something about it. When I see stuff going on over there, I call the police. Sometimes they don't want you to call 911. And sometimes you need to call 911. You know what I mean? Just like that house over there. They pulling us, not me, I know some other people are getting in the car. They pulling us out. I just called the police because that was an emergency. Because sometimes, if you let somebody call 911 for the wrong thing,
You won't get it.
it's a crazy part, but see, that's like a robbery to me. You know, they robbing the house, you know what I mean? So they should have done 911. I don't know if they're okay. Crazy stuff going on, bro. Not a people up here, though. You know, that cat, they bring a lot of weed. You know, so it's kind of hard. I just party. I don't know.
I was out here, I was over there.
Now, Detective Stewart, that interview was difficult to hear because of the engines in the back. So at one point, we hear Sergeant Litke. Who was with you when you conducted this interview?
Sergeant Scott Lickey.
Okay. He mentions something about the defendant's demeanor. Did you notice anything about the defendant's demeanor when you spoke with him?
I did.
And what did you notice?
He seemed nervous.
Okay. And at one point in the interview, he says that there was a man that said that he was harassing him, that the defendant was harassing the man. Do you recall that part of the interview?
Yes.
Do you recall the physical description that he gave of that man?
A bald head guy.
Do you know the victim in this case, Lindell Lewis?
Yes.
Do you know if he had any hair?
He was, at the time that he died, he was bald head.
Detective Stewart, you said you interviewed the defendant a second time, this time by phone?
Yes.
All right. And that phone call was recorded?
Yes.
I'm going to play, Judge, just the beginning portions of State's Exhibit 104A for the jury.
What's up?
Oh, what is that, Mr. Ford?
Detective Stewart, do you recognize the voices there on this call?
Yes.
All right. And who are they and what is this this call here?
My own voice and Mr. Ford.
Okay, so this is the recorded call?
Yes.
Do you know when you made that call? If you don't, that's okay.
I believe it was July of 2016.
Okay.
But I would have to double check my report.
All right.
Yeah, I was calling to follow up with you about the fire across the street. A couple of things. Well, one major thing is, keeps coming up. Because of the tumultuous history that, you and the people in Lindell's house had, everybody is thinking you, right?
No, I never heard that, Tanisha.
Oh, yeah, that's the running thing. So much so that I'm concerned that, people may want to take things into their own hands.
Tanisha, listen to me once again. I do not mess with these people up here. Them guys try to get me to go and engage with them. Them guys was nasty. They had prostitutes in and out all night. They was dealing with homosexuality.
Really? Where did you get that from?
What you mean where I get it from? They got on the porch. That's why I didn't mess with them.
You said it was doing
I'm doing everything going over there. I mean, the way you took the flip burner, y'all had me so scared. I thought that girl would just take me and lock me up. Y'all had me checked up, man.
What was that?
Hey, yeah, I mean, that's some serious stuff. You ain't getting around that information. No, I'm trying to be good and do good.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
when did we have you checked up?
You was the one that he was the one. It's okay. But anyway, no,
I only talked to you at your side door.
I know, it's okay.
We didn't take you anywhere. You weren't in any car. You weren't.
I know.
We just talked to you at your side door.
Them people was just bad people. I didn't do nothing to them people. Them people were just mean. I'm listening here. When they moved up here to Tunisia, they stole everything that wasn't voted down. They stole everything from people. Everything.
Well, let me ask you this, because you already told me that you were at home that night, right?
All right, yeah.
But like I said, it's not that I don't believe you, but this is the problem that I have, is that people around there in the family only know of you guys' arguments and stuff back and forth. That's all they know.
Argument? Why? Mine had no argument. I just,
Somebody said that you were arguing with Jeannie that Sunday.
I didn't argue with no Jimmy.
That's what everybody's saying. If you and Jeannie were arguing outside. And
No, I didn't argue with Jimmy. I don't even know her. I mean, she just drunk. You can understand. She was married to people down there in Winston-Salem. I thought I was back, I was in Winston-Salem some years back. I heard her talk. I thought I was down there with James Brown's property. You know what I mean?
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. I'm serious.
I mean, like, what about her had you feeling that way?
What did you drink? On the weekend, they get drunk. They'll get drunk. You can't understand what I'm saying. I would tell my wife, did you hear what she did? I heard that they get drunk.
I mean, but did they do anything different from any other person that's drunk?
Yeah, well, just a bunch of people over there. This one guy was over there named Rick. I guess when Tommy came up there, I think Lindell put him in charge. They get in an argument. Tommy called him all kind of fast. And I said, this is crazy. I said, we ain't never expressing about
you still doing that with them?
No, I wish I could, but it was weak.
When did you stop?
I believe, let's see what year was that? I can't keep up with the years, you know. Hey, what year was that? I quit with the Beacon, see? I probably gone to about 2010, somewhere around there.
You said 2010?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I was a good group of people. It was like a family, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it was real good people, man. After a while, you know.
Well, Mr. Ford, this is my concern. How to make people believe that it wasn't you.
I'm telling you, when you listen to me, you either take my word or you don't. That's all I can tell you. You're choosing to do the bad, but I don't do that.
Right.
You know, I never some people. I didn't involve me. You know?
Look, I didn't hear anybody accuse you of burning up the van. I think they knew who burned up the van. It was somebody else. So, no, you're not the only person, but it's just that because your name, you know, you and the tenants, you know, whether somebody comes and breaks something or try to break in your house, and then they had some windows broken, and they had, you know, all they know, and it wasn't just them saying that. Some of the neighbors around there are saying that, hey, you know, we just know that they, you know, the guy across the street and Lindell's tenants didn't get along, and that's what everybody in the neighborhood is saying. Everybody's bringing that up.
So, you know, you said these people involved with me, and you kind of like believe in them.
No, let me say again.
Yeah.
It's not that I believe them, it's what I can tell them to make them believe that it wasn't you.
Oh.
It's not that I believe them. What I'm saying is, if your name keeps coming up and they're believing, and I haven't arrested anyone else. So all people know is for some years you guys weren't the best of friends.
No.
So if you guys weren't the best of friends.
I never knew them, so we could have never been friends. And I didn't care for none of their advice, so I would have never been their friends, you know?
Right. And that's
I don't trust people that much anymore, so I would have never been their friends because of the little standards that I have now. No, they used to get pissed off because I wouldn't let them come out the grass. But tell you about stuff to drink and smoke and smoke crack and stuff. That's all that was about, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm just saying that what people perceive. I'm not saying what it was. I'm saying
always perceive that because it's just like this, Tanisha. When you don't tell people, you know, about your daily life, what you're doing in your life, people don't like that. They get mad at you.
Well, like I said, I mean, you know, people, what they saw, you know, was arguments between the two of you. That's what gave me. Let's slow it down for a second.
Yeah.
Everybody that
one guy over there, on the street, he wanted to see how long my pants were.
Okay, well, let me say this.
You have kids, you know, I'm doing a lot of other things with them too. You know, they're doing a lot of things for us, and you know, I just do a lot of stuff, you know, and yeah, but I didn't have anything to do with that, and I don't even know why the neighbors would tell that kind of policy on me, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that's just people's perception.
Oh, yeah.
You guys just have bad relationships.
They should have told you the truth that, you don't bother nobody, that's what they should have told you.
They can't help how they see it.
Well, I don't know, I can't even say they feel like that. Like I said, I think whoever you talk to is lying, you know what I mean? Basically, actually. I mean, those are my words about what's going on, because I never got involved with none of them people, none of them.
Okay.
I didn't know them like that. I don't know the family or anything of that nature, so.
So are you understanding what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I understand exactly what you said, but I don't understand how they feel that I had a beef with you because we used to go and come on our own free will and bother nobody. So I don't see where the beef. I don't see where I have beef with anybody up here.
Well, I'm just as long as you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know where the misunderstanding may have come from, but it exists. That viewpoint is out there. So I want to do something to dispel that viewpoint.
Well, you can tell him I told Mr. Ford, he said it's wrong. I believe he's wrong.
And you think that's going to work?
Oh, yeah.
It won't work. No, that won't work.
Well, you know.
That's not going to work. We need something a little more convincing than that.
They have to have respect for your position and honor your word.
Okay. I can't even give them that because I still can't prove it. I have to prove it. That would still be a belief on my part. I have to prove that. So there's only a few ways I can prove that. If you were in your house and in your bed, you're not in front of a camera somewhere saying, hey, he was elsewhere. You were on that street, across the street. So no matter what I believe, I can't prove that. I can't prove that you didn't come out of your house and go across the street. I can't prove that. But, you know, so short of that, the only thing I have, because my word is not enough. If my word was enough, 2 other homicides would already be solved. Because I have a belief about who did another homicide, but I can't prove it. It comes down to proving. My word, I wish my word was enough, but it's not.
Oh, I got you.
So I'm just looking for some proof to dispel and calm some people's beliefs and their feelings. I just want to do
Why do they feel that?
I don't know how. I wasn't on the street.
I towards me. I was outside towards them. I don't understand that.
Let me say this. I'm coming after the fact. So I don't know what was going on in that street and who said what to whom and who looked at her. I don't know. All I know is several people had the impression that there was bad blood between the 2 households. Now, I don't know how it got that way. I don't know where that belief came. I just know that belief is in existence. And I'd like to do something to dispel that because I don't want to see someone, you know, take the law in their own hands and they're wrong. But by the time they're wrong, something's happened with you or your family.
I understand that.
So,
I don't even know his family.
Yeah. Your name has come up about 20 times.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why my name come up. Man, you know.
It's after somebody tells somebody about an argument, then they tell the next person, they'll call another family member, and oh, they had an argument, and didn't they tell? So it spreads like that.
Yeah, but I never had an argument with them.
I don't know why, but they're saying that you and Jeannie or Gloria, Miss Hart, you guys had an argument that Sunday.
That is a lie.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Whoever telling you that, they could be the one just trying to like shift the. But no, I didn't have no argument with Jeannie. What would I argue with Jeannie for? I mean,
I don't know. I'm just letting you know what information's coming to you.
I don't even know Jeannie to argue with Jeannie.
What I'm just letting you know is whether it's truth or fact, rumors are dangerous. Rumors can be very dangerous, especially when you get a lot of feelings.
You know what I mean? Haters are spread rumors and get you jumped up. That's why I'm not bothering with people.
So when rumors and hurt feelings mix, they're not really good. So I desperately would like to do something to end that.
Yeah.
So
I'm being pursued because there's rumors out here about.
You see, you used the word pursued. Who's pursuing you?
Well, you are to a degree.
No, I'm not.
You do your job.
I have not banged on your door.
No.
I have called you to ask if you're willing to dispel this rumor. It's different from pursue.
Okay.
Much different from pursue.
All right. I used the wrong word. I'm sort of tired. You know, like a morning person.
Yeah.
I'll be out at night. You know, it's just dangerous out there at night. You know.
Yeah.
Nightlife is dangerous, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for calling me back. I greatly appreciate it. And hopefully at 11:10 it's not too late for you to get some good sleep.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of late because, you know, we get up early and do things and we try to get in at appropriate time to get back up the next day to do some more things.
All righty.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I will look forward to hearing from you by Friday.
This Friday, that's tomorrow.
No, it's Wednesday, right?
That's tomorrow. You want to say that Thursday.
Well, you know, by Monday. How about Monday?
Okay, all right, let me see what I can do, Tanisha.
All righty.
Okay, but those are blatant lies this morning. Oh, seriously.
Like I said, it's not about what I believe. It's about what other people believe and what they'll do about their beliefs.
Oh,
that's what it's coming down to. It's what they believe in and what they'll do based on their beliefs.
Okay, but I did not have an argument with them. Matter of fact, I don't even argue with ladies, you know what I mean? I don't even put my hands on it. I don't argue with females for what?
Alrighty.
You know, I have no reason. But anyway, okay, then I get a hold of somebody to see what's going on with me.
Okay, alright, thank you so much.
For calling. Alright, bye.
Okay, Detective Stewart, at this point in your investigation, did you do anything in addition after you spoke with the defendant?
That's a very vague question.
Yeah, sure. What did you do next to try to determine who started this fire?
Again, there's time gaps in there between April and July. With reviewing video, talking to other family members, potential witnesses, neighbors, follow-up interviews, cell phone tower information, just follow wherever the leads went.
Okay. From different witnesses, different things, you were just following leads, doing your work, and then that interview occurred in July?
Yes.
Okay. And at this point, did you feel that you had enough information or evidence to arrest anyone?
No.
Okay. And can you tell the jury why?
There were two things. The totality of the circumstances and preponderance of the evidence. There was not enough against anyone.
Yeah, as to the legal terms,
Okay.
if you can phrase it in your perspective, so the objection sustained, as to the legal conclusion.
Okay. There was not enough evidence against anyone that I felt would hold up for a probable cause warrant for arrest for anyone for that crime.
Okay. And so certainly did you have suspects?
Yes.
Was the defendant one of your suspects?
Yes.
Mr. McLemore, was he a suspect?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Garrett, was he a suspect?
Yes.
Miss Lewis, was she a suspect at that
Yes.
time? During the course of your investigation and speaking with the witnesses, how would you describe the people that were hanging out there at 719 Fultz at Lindell Lewis's house?
Could you say that one more time?
How would you describe that crowd that was hanging out there based on all the witnesses that you had spoken with?
Based on the witnesses, it sounded like it was a house that they like to sit outside, maybe have some drinks or something, chit-chat on the porch, but it sounded like it was a house that he had several tenants they like to hang outside.
Yep. Now, the second fire occurs in May of 2017. Were you made aware of that?
Yes.
And were you made aware of where that fire occurred?
Say that one more time.
Do you know where that second fire occurred, that second house fire?
The second house fire was further down on Falls.
Okay. If I told you it was 693 Fultz, would you have any reason to disagree with that?
I wouldn't disagree.
Okay. And that was in May of 2017?
Yes.
And who is the primary detective assigned to that investigation?
Detective Looney.
Okay, and you're pointing to this man here?
Yes.
With the bald head? Okay. And did you work with Detective Looney on his case and your case after that fire in May of 2017?
We did have some crossover in our investigations.
Okay, and what types of crossover? Describe that for the jury. What did you do?
One, we had a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, that's mischaracterization, but a fair amount of conversation about some of the overlaps in the case, some information that he had gleaned from some neighbors, also looking at video, and also some of the verbiage that was used in my interview with the defendant and his.
Okay, so it's sort of similar.
Yes.
And you said that you had watched video of your incident back in April of 2016, correct?
Yes.
And where was that primarily from, that video?
Say that one more time.
Where was the video from that you observed and watched in 2016, back when you did that initially?
Oh, in 2016, it was from two separate places. It was from the decedent's house and also from across the street from Mr. Chester Williams' house.
Okay. And after the May of 2017 fire, did you go back and look at that video footage again?
Yes.
Okay. And did you notice things that were different?
Yes. I noticed things that did not illuminate themselves to me initially.
What types of things?
Motion in the driveway, lights illuminating inside the house at 1374 Hillcrest. Those things I did not see in my initial review of the video.
In your initial investigation in April of 2016, did you even know the significance of 1374 Hillcrest?
I didn't appreciate the full significance of it, no.
Okay. At that time, in April of 2016, did you go get a search warrant for 1374 Hillcrest?
No.
Did you know that there were alarm codes associated with 1374 Hillcrest?
No.
After the second fire in May of 2017, Detective Stewart, were you able to learn what the defendant's feelings were towards that family that lived at 693 Fultz?
You said before or after?
After the fire in May of 2017, were you able to learn what the defendant's feelings were for that family at the second fire location?
We have motion.
Yes.
We'll withdraw that question, Judge.
Okay. That will be withdrawn. We will not answer, Detective. Thank you. Or is it nurse?
We'll call you.
RN?
Tunisia will do it.
All right.
I have 1 minute, Your Honor. or Detective Stewart, excuse me, you had identified the defendant in this case, Stanley Ford, as someone who you had spoke with at the side of the house there on April 18th of 2016, and you spoke with on the phone on July 6th of 2016. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And you pointed to this man over here, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant in this case. And I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All righty. Mr. Norman? Let's do that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Mr. Reese, Judge. I think you're going to want to use the black one there.
All right.
Because you have.
And I think we need to come beside you.
I think it's. Oh, never mind. It's awesome.
Things like this there. Here would be great. If we could walk back when we need to.
Everybody needs.
Push that other side all the way down. There you go. All right.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 10 after 4. We were talking at sidebar timing-wise, only because we believe the cross-examination and possibly the redirect of this detective will go past 5 o'clock. And so in an effort to kind of keep us on time, we're going to break here. I'm going to give Detective Stewart some admonitions about her testimony. And then we'll pick it up with Mr. Gorman's cross-examination of her in the morning. What I want to know, because we made some modifications for tomorrow, for juror number 7, who's not here now, can everybody be here at 9 o'clock tomorrow? By a show of hands. Mr. Lovelace, you just want to sleep in. It's not that you can't be. No, do you have something? Tell me if you do. What time? All right. Can you be here at 9 then? Or can you cancel that and reschedule it? Yes? I mean, I know it's important. In this day and age, haircuts are very important, right? Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your accommodating the court, and then this way we can stay on schedule for tomorrow. So if you'll be in the jury room about 5 to 9, we'll start promptly at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Remember the, I almost forgot. Remember the admonition I've given you in all breaks. It's important that you be fair and attentive throughout the trial. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Do not permit anyone to discuss it in your presence. Do not talk about it with your family, friends, or the media. You must not post or read anything about this case, whether on the internet or including any device and your cell phones. If discovered, such discussions could lead to a mistrial and severely compromise the party's right to a fair trial. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence, and again, do not form or express an opinion on this case until it's finally been submitted to you. So we're going to adjourn for the night, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 9.
All rise, please. You don't have space down on your seats.
You'll remain under oath through the evening. Do not discuss the state of your testimony or what you've testified to so far, and you may not speak to anybody about your testimony until you are concluded tomorrow. Understand?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We're adjourned.